We never believed anything could be horrifying enough to paralyze an entire empire. Until the undead reached space. When the people of the Concord realized they had never faced the awakening death, they called upon another Death's Earth to save them. They had never known true horror until it found them among the stars. Commander Maya Harlow stood at the edge of the training field, watching as her cadets fumbled through the mud. 24 young soldiers struggling against simulated zombies in a training exercise that was already 30 seconds behind schedule. The Earth's Midwest facility stretched out before her, a sprawling complex dedicated to ensuring humanity never forgot the lessons written in blood across their history. "Barnes, you just got 20 of your squad infected," she shouted, her voice carrying across the training grounds. The scar that ran down her right cheek pulled tight as she frowned. Her parents had died in the Shanghai quarantine zone, and that knowledge was etched into her flesh as surely as it was etched into her soul. This wasn't just training. This was survival. This was memory. This was why Earth still existed when billions had perished. 3 minutes. 30 seconds, she called out. 30 seconds too slow. In a real outbreak, that's 30 seconds where death spreads exponentially. She was about to order another run when Sergeant Shelby approached, his face grim. "Commander, HQ has opened a priority alpha channel. They're requesting you directly." Harlow wiped sweat from her brow, her fingers briefly tracing the scar along her cheek. "Priority alpha? That hasn't happened since the Tokyo incident. Yes, Commander." She nodded grimly. "Improvise. Immediately halt training. Contact Dr. Patel, Reed, Morton, and Zhao." Something had gone terribly wrong. In the Golden Hall of Diplomacy, 5. Admiral Yang Wei stood patiently, while 8 delegate species argued passionately. Blue light from the Zetoun Nebula filtered through the massive viewports, casting an otherworldly glow across the Grand Chamber. Wei's eyes were distant, remembering. 53 years since Earth sacrificed millions to save billions. "They burned Shanghai!" Councillor Brethar, the Vecti representative, shouted. His gaseous form swirled violently within his containment suit. "They executed innocent civilians!" Wei stood abruptly, his voice heavy with the scars of history. "Yes, we did terrible things. But because of that, Earth still exists, and we will not let anyone forget." The Concord, a coalition of the 12 most developed species in the known galaxy, had maintained peace for over 1,000 years through advanced biomedical technology that had eliminated all disease. They believed zombies were a thing of the past and existed only in humanity's traumatic memories. Ambassador Rena Drell, representing the Zen with her shimmering fur, mediated the tense exchange. She had been facilitating Earth's application to join the Concord, despite significant resistance from several member species. "The Concord has been disease-free for a millennium," Brethar continued, his containment suit rippling with agitation. "We need learn nothing from humanity's post-war state." Other species, Marians, theologians, Corallans, nodded in agreement, dismissing Earth as students who never learn, victims of their own history. The urgent notification from Tal Ross interrupted their debate. "Concord delegates." Admiral Wei continued the session. "A strange variant of a virus, seemingly modeled after Earth's zombie virus, is spreading through the root system of Lorendi, triggering collective aggressive behavior." The audience fell silent. No root-communicating species had ever exhibited violence. Wei closed his eyes, remembering his parents' screams as they were quarantined in Shanghai's red zone. The scar on his left arm throbbed. He knew, if Lorendi falls, if other root systems in the Concord become infected, it will spread to 50% of conquered space within 3 months. "It's just a plant world." "What's so terrible about that?" a theologian delegate scoffed. Wei nodded slightly, but his determined gaze was unyielding. "They've called us for one reason only. Don't let the Concord suffer what Earth has endured. Send them an elite team. Enough debate. Begin operation. Zeta Scanum. On the lush, green planet, Lorendi, everything was connected through tree roots and spores floating in the air. A massive living organization. The Vecti research station was established in an underground city, separated by chemically sensitive lights. Dr. Threll, a Vecti scientist, examined a research animal, a plant-animal hybrid with 6 legs, the size of a large dog. The creature refused food and behaved aggressively. "Cellular organization to brain is degrading," Threll said in broken English. "Root infection spreading through spores. Danger unprecedented." Slipping, Threll was scratched by the animal, which punctured his protective helmet. The virus invaded. Zara Katan, the Drakari security team leader, appeared just in time, ordering, "Complete lab lockdown. Full decontamination." "Just a scratch," Threll protested sharply. "I'm fine, nothing serious." Katan was adamant. "Can't risk it. One malfunctioning specimen could collapse the entire planet." Threll screamed, suddenly frenzied, then attacked Katan with disproportionate strength as the virus awakened primitive instincts. Alarms blared. Dozens of plant animals from other labs flooded the corridors, spreading the disease through spores. Katan plunged an energy blade, activating the chemical particle pressure gauge, forming a beam that incinerated the infected creatures. But the virus in the spores had already traveled far, penetrating the air. Monitoring screens showed a terrifying sight. Lorendi's roots outside the station turning black, all carrying the disease. Katan sent a distress signal to Concord Command. The virus containment unit on Lorendi collapsed within hours. The research town was devastated. Harlow received the information, leaning against the wall as she examined an ancient map. "They've never witnessed the undead. They attack en masse. There will certainly be disease remnants somewhere." The immunized team assembled under Harlow's command. Dr. Rohan Patel, human microbiologist. Harlow introduced, "Son of the creator of the zombie outbreak cure, dedicated to finding methods to stop Lorendi spores." A slender man with intense eyes and steady hands nodded. "We've analyzed the preliminary data. This is a variant I've never seen before, but it shares fundamental structures with the Earth outbreak virus." Jackson Reed, human weapons specialist. A cold-eyed man with haunted eyes. His father was lost to zombie bayonets, believes only destructive power can end this. Reed merely checked his shotgun in response, his scarred face grave and serious. Diallo Morton, human, tactical genius. A tall man immediately calculating on a holographic pad, drawing defense diagrams. "I've run 16 simulations," Morton said. "Traditional Concord containment protocols will fail within hours. We need Earth protocols." Len Xiao, human explosives expert. A mischievous-looking woman carrying a box of mini-bombs for leveling necessary positions. "If we can't cure it, we burn it," she said with a tight smile. "Just like Shanghai." Zara Katan, Drakari, security officer who survived Lorendi. A reptilian humanoid moving with cautious precision, obsessed with bacterial contamination. "The virus spreads faster than anything I've ever seen," she reported. "It transforms the host's aggression centers within minutes." Shiva, Marian, multi-species doctor. A luminescent-skinned being who believed in healing rather than destroying. Always uncomfortable with bayonets. "We must remember these are victims, not enemies," she insisted. "There may be a way to save them." Commander Zentel, theologian, observer. An older spider-like being with flattened abdomen and mysterious signal-transmitting tentacles. Initially despising humans as barbaric, now having to learn from their barbaric wisdom. "I still find your methods distasteful," Zentel admitted. "But I am here to learn." Dr. Zen, Coralline biochemist. A crystal-armored being guiding advanced injection formulas for plant species. "My people have never faced such biological aggression," Zane said. "But we are adaptable." The armory doors opened. Real ammunition weapons, mines, cleavers, ignition fuses. The Concord delegates were outraged, but could not stop them. The spaceship Immunized landed near the Drakari capital on Traxxas 4, a city of angular towers, streets now filled with abandoned vehicles and corpses. The scene, a darkened sky, reptilian, Dari, corpses with scaly skin dragging themselves along. Preston, the Zen pilot, trembled. Perimeter's been breached. Zombies have invaded. Reed fired his shotgun into the head of a Dari zombie feeding on a corpse. Blood sprayed. Its body slammed against a wall. The group panicked as hundreds of zombies charged toward them, their scaly skin hard as wood, only stopping when their brains were destroyed. Morton and Catan utilized every alley, setting up barriers and barbed wire, creating choke points. Reed, lead the attack team up Stairwell A, Harlow directed. Morton, set up explosives at the East Tower access. Catan, check on the civilians crowded in the basement. The Drakari civilians, in cryogenic armor, trembled as they listened to Harlow. Keep your spirits up. They are no longer the beings we once knew. Only shoot the skull. That's the only way to stop them. Shiva felt nauseated. But many may not be infected yet. Harlow replied coldly. Whoever is still alive, she will save. Those who react too slowly will turn into others. The team used drones to explore the sewers, sneaking in from behind to supply water and food to civilians. Patel established a temporary medical station in the basement, taking samples from Drakari corpses, discovering that the Lorendi virus had mutated into a new variant capable of spreading back to animal species. Internal conflict arose. Shiva doubted. Are we not killing innocent people? Reed tensed. In war, there's no time to think twice. Harlow received a notification from Way. The Concord had filtered data from the Vecti station on Lorendi, suspecting a third hand behind it all. The screen displayed coordinates, an icy asteroid on the edge of the Lorendi system, a Vecti research base completely sealed off for 20 years. The Concord recommended not touching it. The assault ship docked at the base, and the immunized team split into 3 prongs. Show set explosives to disrupt the power plant area. Harlow, Catan, and Patel traveled through maintenance tubes to the central laboratory. Morton worked through the security interface, creating system vulnerabilities. When the corridor began leaking toxic mist, many infected Vecti, gaseous forms, crawled awkwardly, no longer in human form, coughing as they squeezed through door cracks, emitting gut-wrenching cries. Reed's shotgun blasts only temporarily liquefied the gas layer, but they soon reformed into larger clumps, still constantly snapping at prey. In the central laboratory, a massive room contained tanks of dozens of spider-liquid bulbous creatures connected to a complex purple energy web. In the center, 3 Vecti shells were trying to load creatures into Shepard-strain missiles, set to launch to multiple planets. Harlow shot the leader Vecti shell, and a voice echoed directly in her head. Maya Harlow, humans never accept defeat. You caused billions of beings to fall on Earth. Your value lies in that survival tactic. Lead these powerful undead to expand the galaxy. Harlow appeared shocked but then turned away, raising a detonator. Never. If I become the leader of that undead horde, I swear I will destroy everything. Reed fired 2 shotgun blasts into the containment tank, solution spraying everywhere, purple energy strands tearing through the air. Harlow gestured for Patel and Catan to run toward the escape hatch. Xiao had triggered the concrete bunker collapse. The door slammed shut, fire rising. The final countdown began. 5 minutes. Alarms blaring throughout the network. Harlow took a deep breath. Run! They're about to destroy the air filtration system. The 3 jumped into the rescue shuttle, the hatch door slamming shut. A massive explosion hurled the entire base into the icy depths. The shuttle took off. Looking through the window, smoke and fire billowing from the base, purple light shooting into the stratosphere. Enough data to recreate vaccines for all 8 Concord species, Patel muttered. They've been betraying the Concord for a long time, Catan wiped away tears. The immunized ship docked with the main vessel, a scene of momentary chaos, biological alarms sounding, Concord staff wearing masks, quarantining the area. Harlow met Wei. His eyes were tinged with sadness, but he managed a dry smile. Maya, thanks to you, the Concord survived. Now, we must clean up the aftermath. Patel collaborated with Radix, Coralin, and Shiva, Marion. A hologram frame displayed the formula for transforming Earth's old vaccine into a cross-species antibody. Mass vaccination began. Concord no longer hesitated over vaccine blindness, as before. Zentel, theologian, personally organized a life-healing ceremony on Tal Ross, inviting delegates who had once doubted Earth. Harlow stepped onto the platform, representing humanity. We almost let the entire universe sink into the darkness of the undead. But, thanks to our courage and determination, albeit brutal, today, the Concord has been given new hope. At the official membership ceremony for Earth, in the Concord Grand Council, the Earth sign changed from red-striped to full member. Concord delegates applauded in unison. Unprecedented. Wei presented Harlow with the Master Trainer certification. Harlow remained silent, her eyes fixed on the throne, memories of her parents engulfed in flames, now dissolved by hope. 1 year later, Harlow stood on the stage at the inauguration ceremony of the Academy, built on the ruins of Chicago, once the epicenter of the first zombie outbreak. 200 cadets from 9 species, human, Zen, Vecti, Drakari, Marion, Theologian, Coralin, Lorendi, Quarrelin, marched in mixed uniforms, Concord armor, Earth-style true-ball ammunition guns. Harlow silently reminded herself, every being deserves to be called person, but when death reigns, let their memory burn as a torch to light the way. On the memorial, the names of Jackson Reed, Shiva, and thousands of Concord martyrs were engraved, along with carbonite inscriptions and the carved words, "Never Again." The sunset filtered through the tower of mixed Concord Earth architecture, promising a future free of disease. The Zatoun Nebula cast an eerie blue glow across the grand chamber of Diplomacy 5, the flagship vessel of the Galactic Concord. 8 species of delegates argued passionately, their voices rising and falling like waves against the backdrop of space. Admiral Yang Wei stood silently at the center of it all, weathering the storm of accusations with practiced patience. 53 years, he murmured, almost to himself. 53 years since Earth's people sacrificed millions to save billions. His words were drowned by the outburst from Counselor Breathar, the Vecti representative whose gaseous form swirled violently within his containment suit. The patterns of his movement betrayed his agitation as clearly as the volume of his voice. "They burned Shanghai to the ground," Breathar's translated voice boomed through the chamber. "They executed innocent civilians, children, and you expect us to welcome such barbarians into our peaceful Concord?" Wei's composure finally broke. He stood abruptly, his artificial left arm making a soft whirring sound as he placed both hands on the polished table. The scars of history were etched as deeply on his face as they were in his voice. "Yes, Counselor, we did terrible things, unforgivable things. But because of those decisions, Earth still exists today, and we will never let anyone forget the price we paid." Ambassador Rena Drell of the Zen species raised her delicate, fur-covered hands. The iridescent patterns on her coat shimmered as she moved, creating a hypnotic effect that naturally drew attention, a biological trait that made the Zen exceptional diplomats. "We have heard these arguments before," she said, her melodic voice cutting through the tension. "Earth has spent over a century rebuilding, adapting, and learning from their tragedy. They maintain their outbreak response force not out of paranoia, but as a living memorial to ensure such horrors never occur again." "A millennium without disease," Breathar countered, his containment suit rippling with each translated word. The Concord has maintained peace and health for 1,000 years through superior medical technology and careful quarantine protocols. What could we possibly learn from Earth's bloody history? The other delegates murmured in agreement. The reptilian Drakari representative clicked her teeth in a gesture of dismissal. The crystalline Corallan delegate remained silent, light refracting through their complex body structure in patterns that communicated disgust more clearly than words ever could. "Earth is a cautionary tale," declared the spider-like theologian observer, Zentel. "A failed experiment in crisis management, nothing more." Wei was about to respond when a priority communication alert flashed across the central display. The blue holographic interface pulsed with a red border. Priority Alpha. "Excuse me," Wei said, touching the interface to accept the transmission. The room fell silent as data streamed in. Wei's expression hardened with each passing second. When he finally looked up, the chamber had grown deathly quiet. "Concord delegates," he said, his voice steady, despite the gravity of the situation. "A strange variant of a virus is spreading through the root system of Lorendi. Early analysis suggests it is perhaps modeled after Earth's zombie virus." A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. "That's impossible," Brethar protested. "Our biocontainment protocols are failing." Wei interrupted. "The virus is triggering collective aggressive behavior in the Lorendi hive mind. If it spreads through their spore network to other worlds." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Lorendi was a plant-based collective consciousness whose root systems extended through specialized transit networks to multiple conquered worlds. If their system was compromised, the infection pathway was already established. Wei closed his eyes briefly. The memories of his parents' screams as they were quarantined in Shanghai's red zone washing over him. The scar tissue on his left arm, where his original limb had been severed during the outbreak response, throbbed with phantom pain. If Lorendi falls, if the root systems become infected and reach other worlds, mathematical models predict the virus will spread to 50% of conquered space within 3 months. "It's just a plant world," the theologian delegate scoffed. "What's so terrible about that?" Wei fixed the delegate with a stare that had frozen hardened soldiers in their tracks. "You've never seen what happens when the dead walk, when they hunt, when they spread. But Earth has." He straightened his uniform and issued commands, with the weight of decades of experience behind them. "Dispatch an elite response team to Lorendi immediately. Include Earth specialists. Ambassador Drell, contact Commander Harlow at the Midwest Training Facility. Terminate this debate session. Begin operation. Zeta Scanum." As the delegates dispersed with new urgency, Wei added quietly, "They're calling us because they don't want the Concord to experience what Earth has already endured. Let's not disappoint them." At Earth's Midwest facility, Maya Harlow watched her trainees scramble through the mud-slicked training course. 24 future outbreak response force members battled against mechanical simulations of the infected, their movements too slow, too hesitant. "Barnes, you just got 20 of your squad infected," she shouted, her voice carrying across the field. "When the infected breach your perimeter, you have seconds, not minutes." The jagged scar that ran down her right cheek pulled tight as she frowned. It was a physical reminder of her parents' death in the Shanghai quarantine zone, a memory etched into her flesh as deeply as it was carved into her soul. 3 minutes, 30 seconds, she called out, checking the chronometer. "That's 30 seconds too slow. In a real outbreak, 30 seconds means exponential spread." Sergeant Shelby approached, his expression grim beneath his standard issue cap. "Commander, HQ has opened a priority alpha channel. They're requesting you directly." Harlow's hand instinctively traced the scar along her cheek. "Priority alpha? That hasn't happened since the Tokyo incident." "Yes, Commander." She nodded, her mind already shifting into emergency response mode. "Improvise. Halt training immediately. Contact Dr. Patel, Reed, Morton, and Xiao. Tell them to prep for immediate deployment. Something had gone terribly wrong, and Earth's nightmare was about to become the galaxy's reality. The planet Lorendi glowed like an emerald jewel against the blackness of space. Its surface a tapestry of interconnected vegetation spanning continents. Every living thing on the planet was linked through vast root networks and airborne spores. A planetary hive mind of extraordinary complexity. Deep within Lorendi's subterranean research city, the Vecti science station hummed with activity. Specialized chemical barriers maintained separation between the research specimens and the outside world, their luminescence casting eerie shadows across the sterile laboratory spaces. Dr. Threll, a Vecti xenobiologist, hovered anxiously over a containment unit housing one of their hybrid test subjects, a six-legged creature with both plant and animal characteristics, roughly the size of a large Earth canine. Its behavior had changed dramatically over the past 12 hours. Cellular degradation accelerating, Threll noted in broken standard, his gaseous form swirling agitately within his environment suit. Neural pathways showing abnormal activity. Root interface completely compromised. The creature lunged suddenly at the transparent barrier, its eyes vacant, yet somehow focused on Threll. It had refused nourishment for days, but displayed increasing aggression toward the researchers. Root infection spreading through spores, Threll continued, adjusting the containment field. Danger unprecedented. As he leaned closer to examine a readout, his foot slipped on the recently sterilized floor. He stumbled against the containment unit, and in that moment of imbalance, the creature struck. Its claws raked across Threll's protective suit, creating a micro-tear that would have been imperceptible under normal circumstances. But these were not normal circumstances. Zara Katan, the Drakari security chief, burst into the laboratory, her scaled skin reflecting the emergency lights that had automatically activated. "Complete lab lockdown," she ordered, slamming her palm against the emergency protocol panel. "Full decontamination sequence now." "Unnecessary overreaction," Threll protested, backing away from the containment unit. "Just a minor breach. I am fine. Nothing serious." Katan's reptilian eyes narrowed. "We can't risk it. One malfunctioning specimen could collapse the entire planetary ecosystem. Protocol demands." "I outrank you in this laboratory," Threll interrupted, his gaseous form beginning to swirl in unusual patterns. "I will determine what protocols are necessary." The change happened so quickly that Katan barely had time to reach for her weapon. Threll's normally peaceful Vecti form suddenly compressed, becoming denser, darker. He launched himself at her with unexpected strength, his containment suit's manipulator arms grasping for her throat with inhuman precision. Alarms blared throughout the facility as Katan fought off her former colleague. Through the laboratory windows, she could see chaos erupting in the adjacent research bays. Dozens of specimen containment units were failing simultaneously, releasing hybrid creatures that moved with the same focused aggression as Threll. Katan managed to activate her energy blade, plunging it into Threll's environment suit. The specialized weapon triggered a chemical reaction that incinerated the infected Vecti from within. But even as Threll's form dissipated, Katan knew it was too late. The monitoring screens around the laboratory told the terrifying story. Lorendi's root systems outside the station were turning black, the infection spreading at an impossible rate through the interconnected network. Airborne spores carried the contagion even faster, bypassing the facility's containment systems. With shaking hands, Katan transmitted an emergency signal to Concord Command. Within hours, the virus containment protocols on Lorendi had completely collapsed. The research settlement was overrun, its inhabitants transformed into something that defied biological understanding, neither living nor dead, but driven by an insatiable aggression that seemed purpose-built to spread the infection further. When the transmission reached Earth's Midwest facility, Commander Harlow reviewed the fragmented footage with a growing sense of dread. She traced her finger along an ancient paper map of outbreak vectors, a training tool that had become suddenly, terrifyingly relevant. "They've never witnessed true undead behavior," she murmured to the assembled response team. "They attack in coordinated waves, and there will always be disease remnants hiding somewhere, waiting to reignite." The weight of history settled on her shoulders as she faced her team. Earth was about to repay its debt to the galaxy, with interest measured in blood and sacrifice. The sleek hull of Operation Immunized transport ship sliced through the atmosphere of Traxxas 4, descending toward what had once been the thriving capital city of the Drakari people. Commander Harlow stood in the ship's observation bay, taking in the devastation below. Once proud angular towers now stood abandoned, their distinctive architecture marred by signs of desperate conflict. Streets that should have been filled with the bustling commerce of one of the Concord's most prosperous worlds were instead littered with abandoned vehicles and darker shapes that Harlow recognized all too well. "Perimeter defenses have been breached," reported Preston, the Zen pilot, his luminescent fur dulled with stress. "Life signs are chaotic and wrong. Commander, the undead have already invaded the city center." Harlow turned to address her assembled team, the elite immunized strike force. "Dr. Rohan Patel," she began, indicating a slender human man with intense eyes and methodical movements. "Son of the scientist who developed Earth's outbreak vaccine. His expertise in microbiology will be essential to understanding this variant." Patel nodded gravely. "Preliminary analysis suggests structural similarities to Earth's original virus, but with concerning adaptations for cross-species transmission. I'll need samples from infected hosts of multiple species to develop an effective countermeasure." Jackson Reed, weapons specialist. Reed was checking his modified shotgun, his scarred face impassive. "Lost his father to the Tokyo outbreak. There's no one better at neutralizing infected hostiles." Reed merely chambered a round in response, the sound echoing ominously in the ship's hold. Diala Morton, tactical coordinator. A tall man with close-cropped hair was already mapping potential routes through the city on a holographic display. "He'll identify defensible positions and evacuation corridors. I've run simulations based on Earth's historical outbreaks and Drakari architectural specifications," Morton reported. "Standard Concord containment protocols will fail within hours. We need to implement Earth protocols immediately." Len Xiao, demolitions. A compact woman with a mischievous expression was methodically organizing what looked like miniature explosive devices. "She'll create controlled destruction zones to channel infected movement. If we can't cure it, we contain it," Xiao said with grim determination. "Just like Shanghai." Zara Katan, Drakari security officer, and our only survivor from the Lorendi incident. The reptilian woman's scales showed signs of recent injury, but her movements were precise and deliberate. Her first-hand experience with this variant will be invaluable. "The virus progresses faster than anything in our records," Katan reported. "It hijacks the aggression centers of the brain within minutes of infection, and in the Lorendi plant networks, it spread through the entire planetary system in less than a day." Shiva, Marian medical specialist. A being whose skin seemed to glow from within inclined their head respectfully. "Focused on potential treatments rather than elimination. We must remember that these are victims, not enemies," Shiva insisted, her luminescent patterns shifting in complex patterns that conveyed emotional distress. "There may still be a way to save those in early stages of infection." Commander Zentel, theologian observer. The spider-like being's multiple eyes blinked in sequence as they surveyed the team. "Here to learn our methods for potential implementation across conquered space." "I still find your species' approach distasteful," Zentel admitted, mandibles clicking softly. "But necessity demands I set aside such judgments." "And Dr. Zen, Coralline biochemist." The crystalline being's facets refracted light as they moved. "Specializing in cross-species vaccination protocols." My people have never faced biological aggression of this nature, Zane said, crystal structure humming with tension. But we are adaptable by nature. Harlow nodded to each in turn. Then moved to the weapons locker that had been specially installed aboard the conquered vessel. She entered her authorization code, revealing an arsenal that would have been unthinkable on a conquered ship just days earlier. Projectile weapons, incendiary devices, bladed implements designed for maximum physical damage. Several of the non-human team members recoiled visibly. "These are barbaric," Zentel protested. Conquered protocols weren't designed for the undead," Harlow interrupted, distributing weapons with practiced efficiency. "Energy weapons won't stop them. You need to destroy the brainstem completely, and these are the tools for the job." She thrust a modified shotgun into Zentel's manipulator appendages. "Your people may have enjoyed a millennium of peace, but my people bought their survival with blood and fire. Today, you learn our methods, or you die. There is no third option." The ship shuddered as it touched down on a landing pad at the outskirts of the Drakari capital. The team moved to the exit ramp, weapons ready. "Remember your training," Harlow said as the ramp began to lower. "Headshots only. Conserve ammunition. Maintain formation. And no matter what you see out there, these are not people anymore. They're vectors for infection. Nothing more." The ramp hit the ground with a metallic thud, and the stench of decay washed over them. In the shadows of the nearest building, a Drakari corpse turned slowly toward the sound, its scaled skin mottled with black veins, its movements jerky but purposeful. Reed raised his shotgun smoothly and fired. The infected Drakari's head exploded in a spray of dark fluid, its body collapsing like a puppet with cut strings. The sound of the shot echoed through the empty streets, and from the shadows came answering moans, dozens, then hundreds of them, as the undead horde became aware of fresh prey. "Move out," Harlow ordered, leading the charge into the nightmare that had once been a thriving metropolis. "We secure the government center and establish a defensive perimeter. Civilian survivors are the priority." The team advanced through the streets, encountering increasing resistance as they approached the city center. The infected Drakari were formidable opponents. Their naturally armored skin made them difficult to put down permanently, requiring precise shots to the brain or severing of the spinal column. Morton and Catan worked together to identify defensible choke points, setting up barriers and improvised traps to slow the undead advance. Xiao strategically placed explosive charges at key structural points, ready to collapse buildings if necessary to protect evacuation routes. "Reed, take point on the eastern approach," Harlow directed as they reached a massive civic building that could serve as a temporary headquarters. "Morton, deploy sonic barriers at the north and west entrances. Catan, your people may have survivors in the lower levels. Check and report back." The team dispersed to their assignments with military precision. Harlow and Patel established a makeshift command center in what had once been an administrative office, using salvaged equipment to monitor the situation throughout the city. "Biosensors are detecting approximately 3,000 uninfected life signs," Patel reported, studying a holographic display. "Most are concentrated in subterranean shelter areas. The good news is that Drakari infrastructure was built to withstand natural disasters. Many of the emergency bunkers have automatically sealed." "And the bad news?" Harlow asked, though she already knew the answer. "Those seals won't hold indefinitely. And based on infection spread patterns, many of the shelters likely have infected individuals inside, undetected in the early stages." Harlow nodded grimly. "We establish a secure zone here, then begin systematic evacuation of confirmed uninfected civilians. Anyone showing symptoms." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Patel understood the protocols. Catan returned from the lower levels, her scaled features set in a grim expression. "We have approximately 200 civilians in the subsurface chambers. Many are injured, and all are terrified. I've instructed them on identification of infection symptoms. But people lie when they're scared. Harlow finished for her. Especially about bites or exposure. I know. She had seen it too many times during Earth's outbreaks. The desperate concealment of symptoms that inevitably led to more deaths. My people are not accustomed to such brutality, Catan said quietly. The Conquered has known peace for so long. They don't understand what must be done. Harlow placed a hand briefly on the Drakari's armored shoulder. Then we must show them, not just how to survive, but why survival matters. Over the next 72 hours, the team established a defensible perimeter around the government complex. Using a combination of Earth tactics and Conquered technology, drones were deployed to map the sewer systems and secondary access points, allowing for safer resource gathering and civilian evacuation. Patel set up a field laboratory in one of the basement levels, working tirelessly to analyze samples from infected Drakari corpses. His findings were troubling. The virus had mutated significantly from the Lorendi variant, adapting to reptilian physiology with alarming speed. It's as if it was designed to cross species barriers, he explained during a team briefing. Normal viral evolution doesn't work this way. Something, or someone, engineered this pathogen specifically to target multiple Conquered species. The implications hung heavy in the air. If true, this wasn't just an outbreak. It was biological warfare on an unprecedented scale. Tensions within the team grew as the situation deteriorated. Shiva, committed to preserving life whenever possible, challenged Reed's aggressive elimination tactics. Are we certain we're not killing innocent people? She demanded, after a particularly bloody clearing operation. Some of these infected may still be in early stages, potentially salvageable. Reed's scarred face remained impassive. In war, there's no time for maybes. One mistake, one moment of hesitation, and we lose everything. I've seen it before. The argument might have escalated further, if not for an urgent transmission from Admiral Wei that interrupted their debate. Commander Harlow. Wei's holographic form flickered into existence above the command console. Concord Intelligence has completed analysis of data recovered from the Lorendi station. We have reason to believe this outbreak was deliberately engineered and released. Harlow leaned forward. Do we have a source? Wei's expression was grim. Coordinates are being transmitted now. An isolated research facility on the edge of the Lorendi system, officially listed as a decommissioned Vecti outpost. It's been dark for over 20 years. No official Conquered traffic or communications. The coordinates appeared on the display, along with limited sensor data showing an asteroid-based facility embedded in ice. Concord protocols would normally demand observation and diplomatic approach. Wei continued. But, given the circumstances, I've been authorized to give you full operational discretion. In other words, Harlow translated, go in hard and find answers. Wei nodded. Just be aware, whatever you find there, it's been hidden from the Conquered for decades. Expect the unexpected, Commander. Understood, Admiral. We'll deploy immediately. As the transmission ended, Harlow turned to her team. Change of plans. Catan, Patel, Reed, Xiao. You're with me, Morton. Coordinate with Zentel, Shiva, and Zen to maintain the secure zone here. We're going hunting for Patient Zero. The assault shuttle detached from the main vessel. Its stealth systems engaged as it approached the mysterious facility embedded in the icy asteroid. From orbit, it appeared abandoned, minimal power signatures, no visible activity, its existence almost perfectly concealed against the backdrop of space. Approach vector calculated to minimize detection, reported Preston, the Zen pilot. But if they have any kind of decent sensor array, they'll know we're coming. Harlow studied the facility schematic that Morton had hastily compiled from the limited available data. 3 primary entry points. Main docking bay is likely monitored. Maintenance access here and here. She indicated 2 points on opposite sides of the facility. We'll split into teams. I can create a diversion at the power regulation node, Xiao offered, already sorting through her explosive arsenal. Controlled detonation. Nothing that would compromise life support, but enough to draw attention and resources. Harlow nodded. Do it. Catan. You and I will take Patel through the maintenance shafts to the central lab. Reed. Cover Xiao, then rendezvous with us at this junction. She indicated a point where several corridors intersected near the heart of the facility. As the shuttle performed a final approach, Harlow felt the familiar tension that preceded combat. Not fear, exactly, but a heightened awareness of mortality. Earth had learned the hard way that in fighting the undead, death was always a companion, waiting for any mistake. One more thing, she said, as they prepared to disembark. If this facility is the origin point of the outbreak, expect the worst infection density we've yet encountered, and potentially variants we haven't seen before. No heroics, no risks. We get in, find the source, secure any data or samples that could help create a vaccine, then get out. Clear? The team nodded in unison, faces set with determination. Then let's finish this. The facility was eerily silent as they made their entry, splitting into their assigned teams. Harlow, Catan, and Patel navigated the narrow maintenance tunnels, their progress slow but undetected. Occasional sounds echoed through the metal passageways, mechanical systems still functioning automatically, and something else. Something organic that sent chills down Harlow's spine. Movement ahead, Catan whispered, her reptilian senses more acute than the humans. Not normal movement. Infected. They reached a junction where the maintenance shaft opened into a broader corridor. The air here was different, tinged with a metallic smell that Harlow recognized from Earth's outbreak zones. Death and decay, but with something else beneath it. Something chemical. A mist began to seep through the ventilation grates. Not the normal atmospheric cycling of a space facility, but something viscous and purposeful. Within the mist, shapes began to form. Gaseous entities that might once have been Vecti, but were now something nightmarishly different. They no longer maintained the structured gaseous form typical of their species. Instead, flowing like liquid smoke, tendrils reaching out with apparent purpose. The entities emitted sounds that might have been speech once, but were now just tortured vibrations that set Harlow's teeth on edge. Reed, who had rejoined them after escorting Xiao to her position, raised his shotgun and fired. The blast temporarily dispersed one of the gaseous forms, the specialized ammunition creating a chemical reaction that briefly liquefied the entity. But within seconds, it began to reform, pulling itself back together with single-minded purpose. Conventional weapons aren't effective, Reed reported grimly, backing up slowly. These aren't like any infected I've encountered before. The virus has adapted to Vecti physiology, Patel observed, recording the phenomenon with a scientific detachment that belied the danger. Instead of attacking the brain directly, it's altering the electromagnetic bonds that maintain their gaseous cohesion. Fascinating and terrifying. Save the scientific observations for later, Harlow ordered. We need to reach the central laboratory. Alternative route? Catan consulted the schematic on her wrist display. Ventilation system, 2 levels down. We'd need to pass through that storage area. She indicated a chamber adjacent to their position. Harlow nodded. Movement pattern Delta. I'll take point. They advanced cautiously, using modified Concord sonic pulses to temporarily disrupt the gaseous infected entities when they came too close. The storage area Catan had identified turned out to be a massive cryopreservation chamber, its walls lined with thousands of specimen containers. "What is this place?" Catan whispered, her scaled skin paling slightly as she took in the scope of the collection. Patel moved to one of the container interfaces, accessing its data. These are biological samples from everywhere, every known conquered species, plus dozens I don't recognize. He looked up, his expression troubled. Some of these samples date back centuries. This isn't a recent operation. It's been ongoing since before Earth joined the galactic community. A sudden explosion rocked the facility, Xiao's diversion taking effect. Alarms began to sound, and the lighting shifted to emergency protocols. That's our cue, Harlow said. Move out. They navigated through the facility's increasingly chaotic interior, encountering more infected of various species. Not just Vecti, but Coralline, Theologian, even some Dracari specimens. Each displayed the same aggressive behavior, though adapted to their specific physiology. Finally, they reached the central laboratory, a massive chamber dominated by an intricate web of energy conduits, all converging on a series of containment tanks. Within the tanks floated organisms, unlike anything Harlow had seen before, part arachnid, part fluid, their bulbous forms pulsing with an inner light that matched the purple energy flowing through the facility's systems. Near the tanks stood three figures in what appeared to be Vecti environmental suits. Though something about their movement seemed wrong, they were working frantically at a console, apparently attempting to load specimens into what looked disturbingly like launch vehicles, small missiles labeled with Concord navigation markings. They're preparing to send infected samples to other worlds, Patel realized aloud. We have to stop them. Harlow didn't hesitate. She raised her weapon and fired at the nearest figure. The shot struck true, but instead of the expected reaction, the figure turned slowly toward them, the front of its environmental suit dissolving to reveal nothing. The suit was empty, yet moving with purpose, controlled by something else. And then a voice spoke directly into Harlow's mind, bypassing her ears entirely. Maya Harlow, human, child of a species that never accepts defeat, even in the face of extinction. You commanded the deaths of billions on Earth to preserve your kind. Your value lies in that ruthless survival instinct. Join us. Lead our ascension. The dead galaxies await new masters. Harlow staggered under the psychic assault, images flooding her mind, visions of worlds overrun by the infected, but with herself at their head, commanding the horde like a general leading an unstoppable army. For a moment, just a moment, she felt the seductive pull of that power, the ability to ensure that humanity would never again face extinction, because they would be the extinction event. But then she remembered Shanghai, the burning, the screams, her parents. Never, she snarled, raising the detonator Xiao had given her before they separated. If becoming your vanguard is the only way to survive, then I choose extinction. Reed seized the moment, firing 2 rapid shots into the nearest containment tank. The reinforced material cracked, then shattered, spilling its contents across the laboratory floor. The purple energy strands connecting the tanks began to arc wildly, tearing through the air with increasing intensity. Run! Harlow shouted, grabbing Patel by the arm and pushing him toward the exit. Catan, cover our retreat! They fled through the chaotic facility, alarms blaring as systems began to fail catastrophically. The voice continued to echo in Harlow's mind, but fainter now, disrupted by the destruction of its physical anchors. Xiao met them at a junction, her face streaked with soot, but wearing a triumphant expression. Primary and secondary power systems are down. I've rigged the tertiary systems to overload in exactly 5 minutes. The hangar bay? Harlow asked as they ran. Sealed by emergency protocols, Xiao reported. But I found us an alternative exit strategy. She indicated a maintenance airlock ahead. Emergency evacuation pod. It's basic, but it'll get us back to the main ship. As they reached the airlock, a fresh wave of infected emerged from a side corridor. Not just Vecti this time, but a horrifying amalgamation of multiple species, as if the virus had found a way to combine traits from different hosts. Reed positioned himself at the junction, weapon raised. I'll hold them off. Get the pod ready. Reed, don't be stupid, Harlow snapped. We all go or no one goes. He gave her a rare smile. the scars on his face pulling tight. Some decisions don't need thinking twice about, Commander. Just like Shanghai. He fired into the approaching horde. Now go. That's an order. There was no time to argue. Harlow, Catan, Patel, and Zhao crowded into the evacuation pod, its systems already cycling for emergency launch. The last thing Harlow saw before the airlock sealed was Reed standing his ground, weapon blazing, as the infected swarmed toward him. Then the pod detached, thrusters firing to push them clear of the doomed facility. Through the viewport, they watched as the asteroid base was rocked by a series of explosions, purple energy erupting from its core and dissipating into the vacuum of space. The self-destruct sequence Xiao had initiated completed what they had begun, erasing all evidence of the horrific experiments that had been conducted there. But not before Patel had secured critical data, information that might help develop a vaccine against the engineered virus. He saved us, Catan said quietly, her reptilian eyes fixed on the dissolving remnants of the facility. You're Reed. He sacrificed himself without hesitation. That's what humans do, Harlow replied, her voice hollow with grief. We've had a lot of practice at it. The evacuation pod's communication system crackled to life, Admiral Wei's voice cutting through the static. Commander Harlow, do you copy? Sensors detected multiple explosions at the target site. Mission accomplished. Admiral, Harlow reported. We've eliminated the source facility and secured critical research data. But we lost Reed. Her voice caught slightly on his name. Request immediate pickup and full decontamination protocols. Understood, Commander. Extraction team is already en route. And Harlow, well done. As the pod drifted in space, waiting for rescue, Patel examined the data they had managed to salvage from the facility systems. It's worse than we thought, he said finally. This wasn't just some rogue Vecti operation. According to these records, the entity behind this has been experimenting with viral weaponization for millennia. It calls itself Shaper, some kind of collective consciousness that exists alongside the known species of the conquered. Why? Catan asked. What purpose could such destruction serve? Evolution through catastrophe, Patel replied, scrolling through the data. It believes that true advancement only comes through existential threats. It's been engineering crises throughout galactic history, pushing species to evolve or die. And Earth's zombie outbreak? Harlow asked, though she already suspected the answer. Patel nodded grimly. Just another experiment. But what happened on Earth wasn't what it expected. Humans didn't just survive. They adapted, developed countermeasures, strategies. That's why it's targeting the Concorde now. It wants to see if 1,000 years of peace has made them too weak to survive. A test we're going to make sure they pass, Harlow said firmly. No matter the cost. The immunized vessel docked with the Conquered flagship, and chaos briefly erupted as alarms sounded and containment protocols activated. Medical personnel in full isolation gear swarmed the arrivals, escorting them through rigorous decontamination procedures before they were cleared to meet with Admiral Wei. Wei greeted Harlow with a respectful nod, his eyes reflecting both relief and sorrow. Commander, your team has performed admirably under impossible circumstances. I've reviewed Dr. Patel's preliminary report. If his findings are accurate, they are, Harlow confirmed. This wasn't a natural outbreak or even conventional bioterrorism. This was an engineered apocalypse created by something that's been manipulating galactic development from the shadows. Wei's expression hardened. Then we face an enemy unlike any the Concorde has encountered before. The Council has been briefed, and for the first time in centuries, they've activated wartime protocols. He gestured to a holographic display showing deployment patterns across conquered space. Quarantine measures are being implemented on all affected worlds. Your Earth protocols are being distributed to all defense forces. And the vaccine? Harlow asked. Dr. Patel is already collaborating with our best researchers. The data you recovered may be the key to developing a cross-species inoculation. In the days that followed, Patel worked tirelessly alongside scientists from multiple conquered species, including the luminescent radix, a coralline specialist, and Shiva, whose Marian biology gave her unique insights into cellular regeneration. Together, they developed a revolutionary approach, adapting Earth's original zombie vaccine into a form that could protect all conquered species. The holographic modeling showed promise, but the real test would come in clinical trials. Meanwhile, Commander Zentel, the theologian observer who had once dismissed humans as barbaric, organized a solemn, life-healing ceremony on Talros. Representatives from all conquered species attended, including those who had previously opposed Earth's membership. Harlow, representing humanity, addressed the gathered delegates. Her words were few but powerful. "We nearly allowed the entire universe to sink into darkness. But through courage and determination, yes, sometimes brutal determination, we have given the conquered new hope. Earth learned its lessons in blood and fire. If that knowledge can spare you the same pain, then perhaps our suffering had meaning after all." The mass vaccination program began shortly thereafter, administered with none of the hesitation that had characterized the Concord's previous approach to medical interventions. The crisis had shattered their complacency, forcing them to confront the reality that peace and security required constant vigilance. 6 months after the initial outbreak, the Concord Grand Council convened a special session. The central display, which had previously shown Earth's status as probationary member with a red border, changed to full member with unanimous approval. Delegates from all 12 species rose in applause, an unprecedented show of respect and gratitude. Admiral Way presented Harlow with the Master Trainer certification, officially recognizing Earth's contribution to galactic security. Harlow accepted the honor in silence, her eyes fixed on the empty chair where Reed should have been sitting. Memories of all who had been lost, her parents in Shanghai, Reed in the facility, countless others across multiple worlds, weighed heavily on her. But for the first time, those memories brought not just pain, but also a sense of purpose fulfilled. 1 year later, Harlow stood on a podium overlooking the newly established Galactic Defense Academy, built upon the ruins of Old Chicago, once ground zero for Earth's first major outbreak. The symbolism was deliberate and powerful. 200 cadets from 9 different species stood at attention in their mixed uniforms, traditional Concord armor, modified to accommodate Earth-style tactical equipment and weaponry. They represented a new approach to galactic security, one that combined the Concord's technological advancement with Earth's hard-won survival expertise. As Harlow addressed the inaugural class, she thought of the words she had carried with her since Shanghai. "Every sentient being deserves to be called person. But when death walks among us, let the memory of those we've lost light our path forward. Remember them, not just with monuments and ceremonies, but with vigilance and preparation." The memorial wall behind her bore thousands of names: Jackson Reed, Shiva, who had succumbed to infection while treating patients on Traxxas 4, and countless others who had given their lives during the crisis. Alongside the names were inscribed 2 simple words in multiple languages: never again. As the sunset filtered through the mixed architecture tower that combined Concord aesthetics with Earth practicality, Harlow allowed herself a moment of hope. The galaxy had faced its darkness and emerged stronger. The lessons of Earth's nightmare had become a gift to the stars, a terrible gift, bought with blood, but perhaps the most important one humanity could offer. The dead would rest easier, knowing their sacrifice had meaning, and the living would face tomorrow better prepared for whatever horrors might await them in the vastness of space. In the aftermath of the Concord's victory over the engineered plague, the true work began, not just rebuilding shattered worlds, but reconstructing a galactic society that had been fundamentally changed by its brush with extinction. The Galactic Defense Academy became the centerpiece of this new approach, with Commander Harlow serving as its first director. Under her guidance, the curriculum evolved beyond mere tactical response to infected outbreaks, encompassing a comprehensive philosophy of resilience. "The next crisis won't look like the last one," she frequently reminded her students from across the Concord. "We prepare not just for specific threats, but for the unexpected." Dr. Patel established the Academy's research division, dedicated to studying the biological samples recovered from the Shaper facility. His team made significant breakthroughs in understanding how the entity had engineered viruses to target specific species, knowledge that proved invaluable in developing prophylactic measures against future biological attacks. "The Shaper may have been destroyed," Patel cautioned during a council briefing, "but its research likely exists elsewhere. We must assume similar threats will emerge again." Zara Katan, promoted to security commander following her heroism during the crisis, implemented new protocols for early detection and containment across Concord space. Her experience as both a victim of the outbreak and a key figure in its resolution gave her unique credibility among the various species. "My people once believed ourselves invulnerable," she told a class of Drakari cadets. "Our natural armor, our advanced technology, our position within the Concord, all these things fostered a dangerous complacency. Remember, strength lies not in the absence of vulnerability, but in acknowledging and preparing for it." Len Xiao, whose explosives expertise had proven critical during the mission, found herself unexpectedly appointed as the Academy's chief of structural security. Her unconventional approach to defense planning: "Sometimes the best way to secure a building is to know exactly how to destroy it," initially shocked Concord architects, but gradually gained acceptance as its effectiveness became apparent. Admiral Wei continued to serve as Earth's primary representative to the Concord Council, where he advocated for greater integration of human emergency response methodologies into galactic governance. The loss of his arm during Earth's original outbreak gave his arguments a personal weight that few could dismiss. Peace is not merely the absence of conflict, he reminded the Council during a particularly contentious debate over resource allocation. It is the presence of justice, preparedness, and honest reckoning with threats both known and emerging. Not all the changes were institutional. Throughout Concord space, cultural attitudes began to shift as well. Species that had once viewed Earth's violent history with disdain now studied it with newfound respect. Archaeological expeditions to Earth's outbreak zones became common, with researchers seeking to understand how human societies had adapted to and ultimately overcome catastrophe. Theologian philosophers, led by Commander Zentel, developed new ethical frameworks that incorporated Earth's hard-won wisdom about survival necessities without abandoning the Concord's core values of peace and cooperation. Their treatise, Compassionate Brutality, Ethics at the Edge of Extinction, became required reading for all Concord officials. Meanwhile, Dr. Zen and a team of Corallan researchers pioneered new approaches to environmental monitoring, creating networks of sentinel organisms capable of detecting biological anomalies before they could develop into full-scale threats. The system, inspired by Earth's canary and coal mine concept, but vastly more sophisticated, was implemented across major population centers. On the anniversary of the outbreak's containment, representatives from all Concord species gathered at the newly constructed memorial spire on Lorendi, the world where it had all begun. The planet had been decontaminated and partially repopulated, though vast regions remained under quarantine as a precaution. The memorial ceremony was transmitted across Concord space, a solemn reminder of what had been lost and what had been learned. As each representative placed a symbolic token at the base of the spire, they recited the names of those from their species who had fallen. When Harlow's turn came, she stepped forward with a simple wooden box containing soil from Shanghai. As she placed it among the other offerings, she spoke not just Reed's name, but the names of her parents, And then simply, "And the 3 billion others who taught us the price of survival." There was no applause, only a moment of profound silence that spread across the gathered crowd and beyond. To all who watched the transmission, in that silence was acknowledgement that some lessons can only be learned through suffering, and that wisdom born of pain must never be forgotten. Later that evening, as the memorial lights illuminated the night sky of Lorendi, Harlow stood alone at the edge of a regenerating forest. The plants here were new growth, carefully cultivated to replace what had been lost during the outbreak. They bore little resemblance to their predecessors, yet fulfilled the same ecological function. Admiral Wei found her there, his artificial arm gleaming faintly in the memorial lights. "The Council has approved your proposal," he said, without preamble. "Operation Vigilant Memory will begin deployment next month. Early warning stations on every conquered world, staffed by cross-species teams trained in your protocols." Harlow nodded, watching as bioluminescent insects, a new species engineered to replace extinct pollinators, danced among the young plants. "It's a start." "More than that," Wei disagreed gently. "It's a fundamental shift in how the Concord approaches security. For 1,000 years, they believed technology alone could protect them. Now they understand what we learned the hard way, that survival requires not just tools, but will and sacrifice," Harlow added quietly. "Yes." Wei's expression softened. "I've been authorized to offer you a new position, Supreme Commander of Conquered Defense Forces. You would oversee not just the Academy, but all military and emergency response operations across conquered space." Harlow raised an eyebrow. "That's unprecedented. No human has ever held such a rank." "No human had ever saved the galaxy before," Wei pointed out. "Times change." She turned to face the memorial spire, its light casting long shadows across the regenerating landscape. "I'm not a politician, Admiral. Neither am I. But some roles transcend politics. This isn't about diplomacy or trade agreements. It's about ensuring that what happened here never happens again, anywhere." Harlow considered the offer, weighing it against the faces of those she had lost. Would they approve of this new direction? Reed would. Certainly. He had always believed in taking decisive action. Her parents might have been more hesitant, valuing their scientific objectivity. But in the end, they too had understood the necessity of difficult choices in impossible situations. "I'll accept," she said finally, "on one condition." "Name it." "The position must include authority over research initiatives, as well as tactical operations. We can't just prepare to fight the last war. We need to anticipate the next one." Wei smiled faintly. "Already arranged. Dr. Patel will report directly to you as Chief Science Officer of the Unified Command." Harlow nodded, a weight lifting slightly from her shoulders. Not gone. It would never be gone entirely. But shifted, redistributed, made bearable by purpose. As they walked back toward the gathering, Harlow noticed a young theologian cadet observing the memorial with an intensity that reminded her of herself at that age. The multi-limbed being was sketching something in a journal, not the spire itself, but the people gathered around it, their diverse physiologies rendered with careful attention to detail. "Cadet," Harlow acknowledged with a nod. "Your observations?" The theologian started slightly, then straightened to a formal posture of respect. "Commander Harlow, I wanted to capture this moment. Different species united not by prosperity or convenience, but by shared survival. It seems significant." "It is," Harlow agreed. "What's your name, Cadet?" "Axiom, Commander, Junior Tactical Observer, 3rd Cycle." "And what do you hope to learn at the Academy, Axiom?" The young theologian considered the question with characteristic thoroughness before answering. "My people have always been observers, collectors of knowledge, but during the crisis, Many of us discovered that observation without action has limited value. I want to learn how to translate knowledge into survival, not just for my species, but for all. Harlow studied the cadet's earnest expression, recognizing in it something essential, the spark that separated those who merely survived crises from those who emerged from them stronger. "A worthy goal," she said finally, "and harder than you imagine. But that's why we're here." She gestured to the gathered representatives. "Not just to remember what was lost, but to ensure what was learned remains alive." As the memorial ceremony concluded, the assembled beings from across the Concord raised illuminated symbols in the tradition of their respective worlds: Earth's candles, Zen light crystals, Dracari flame scales, and more exotic manifestations. Together, they created a constellation of remembrance that outshone even the stars, visible through Lorendi's clearing atmosphere. In that light, Harlow saw not just memory, but promise. The dead were honored not through passive mourning, but through active determination that their sacrifice would continue to have meaning. The galaxy had faced its darkness and found within itself not just the will to survive, but the wisdom to change. Earth's nightmare had become the Concord's awakening, a terrible gift, but perhaps the most important one humanity could offer to the stars. As the lights ascended into Lorendi's night sky, Harlow whispered the words that had become both memorial and mandate across Concord space. "Remember, prepare, endure." The dawn that followed would bring new challenges, new threats, new opportunities for catastrophe or triumph. But it would not find the Concord unprepared. Not again. Never again. That was the promise written in light against the darkness, a promise made by the living to the dead, and by the present to the future, a promise that Earth had kept through blood and fire, and that the galaxy now made its own. The lessons of death had become the foundation for life's continuation, and in that paradox lay humanity's greatest contribution to the stars, the understanding that from endings come beginnings, if only those who remain are brave enough to forge them.